Excited about this conversation with Roupen about lifestyle changes that cancer patients can make during cancer treatment and after cancer treatment that are backed up by science. Now, Dr. Roupen is an oncologist and a hematologist as well, so he's going to bring some really important information that it's backed up by science, which I think it's for a lot of people it is important. I was my own guinea pig, so I can speak by my own experience, but I think it's also important to bring science in the party because a lot of people can connect to that. Hi, Roupen, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So let's just start by talking about something that I found out literally at very beginning of my treatment, and it wasn't the oncologist that told me. I received a little booklet from Bowel Cancer Australia that informed me that processed meat, the consumption of processed meat, was directly related to colon cancer. And I had eaten salami my whole life. I loved salamis. I loved, hams and prosciutto, like all of those things. And I had eaten that my entire life. And I did not know that. And I know that many people also don't know that. So can you talk to us a little bit about the research that's been done around that?
Yeah, I think it's very well known right now about the risk factors of meat and artificial sweeteners on cancer. Just before going through that, so to introduce myself, my name is Roupen, and thank you so much for the invitation. Currently, I'm an oncologist slash hematologist. I'm very passionate about cancer and cancer treatment and how to prevent cancer because, like, I do believe that there are lots of choices that we take from day-to-day basis that affect our risks of developing cancer. I do have a YouTube channel as well where I talk about the risk factors about different cancers and how to prevent them. I love educating people about cancers. And the reason why is, even for me as a physician, when I started my training, whenever I thought about oncology, I thought about it as a very sad specialty. People get cancer and die. Well, there are some lethal cancers, that's for sure, but oncology really advanced over the many, many years. And we do have lots of available treatment options. And I didn't know that, even though I was in training, I was doing my training in internal medicine. And then I got to expose to oncology. I was fascinated by the science and the evidence behind it. But that being said, treatments are not everything. I think we as individuals, we do have our control on certain risk factors that can delay the development of cancers or prevent some cancers from happening. Before talking about the meat, so to our listeners, I just want to explain like the basic principle of how cancer happens. So the cancer is a cell in our body that for some reason became abnormal. So all of us at any given point in time, we do have cancer cells. I do have cancer cells. Everyone else have cancer cells. Those cancer cells are being controlled by our immune system, and the immune system kills those cancer cells. For some reason, some people are genetically predisposed, and when they get to environmental exposure, they develop cancer. So this cell that is part of our body cells, whether it's located in the prostate or the breast or the colon, start dividing without being controlled by hormonal effect, immune effect, and becomes uncontrollable. Literally, it becomes its own master and divide and makes a tumor, and that tumor invades and travels to other parts of the body, and that's what makes cancers. So now going back to your question, like how meat and our lifestyle can affect the risk of developing cancer. It's a very well known. If you go to the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the meat has chemicals. They are called the HCAs and the PAHs. So these chemicals are usually formed when expose red meat to high temperature. And whether this meat is like coming from beef, or whether it's coming from pork, or whether it's coming from fish, or whether it's coming from chicken. So when we get exposed to high levels of these chemicals, it can lead to cancer. But this is proven in animals. In human beings, it's unclear, and this is something I just want to emphasize. But because like that's how also we figure out our medications. First, we give it to animals. If it's work, we try to then apply it to human beings. And if it works in animal, that doesn't mean it works in human beings. The same comes with when it comes to carcinogens. If there is a carcinogen or a medication that causes or a substance that causes cancer in animals, that doesn't really apply to human beings. But that being said, there is a strong evidence that meat, especially like the curated meat and the preservatives that added to meat after cooking it, it what predisposed people to cancer. So this is
Yeah.
one. Two, the problem is the way that animals are raised and how animals are fed. And that's what concerns me the most. I come from a different part of the world. I'm not from Northern American countries. And the way that we used to raise animals is very different than the ways animals are raised here in North America, or like in, I would say, like in advanced, in the first world countries. And it's something I didn't know about until like, because I'm very cautious about what I put in my body. And there are tons of documentaries. I think you can find them on you can find them on Netflix.
Netflix.
You can find them on Prime. You can find them. Animals are fed antibiotics, are fed hormones to make them grow faster. And where animals are grown, it's not a farm anymore, it's a factory. So when you feed those creatures just with the goal of making their growth faster, just to make the production faster, only God knows what type of carcinogens and what type of chemicals are being formed in their muscle tissues. And then we expose this muscle tissue to chemicals, fire, charcoal, oils, vegetable oils, you name it. And then we eat it. So God only knows what type of chemicals are being developed and being uh, getting worse and worse with every part of the process. And that's the problem is we know that cancer's prevalence is increasing. We know that cancer is happening more, but we don't know the exact reason. But I
Yeah.
think it's making sense. The way that we're treating animals, the way that we are feeding animals just to make them grow faster, and then we just throw them in the market and we make people eat them just for the sake of making more money. I think that's a big part that explains why the prevalence of cancer is increasing, and not only that, in younger population as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Um, so a couple of things, like just going back to your initial talks around how cancer develops, and you talk about the genetic predisposition. Now, I did not have any genetic predisposition myself. I don't have any cancers in my family, bowel cancer or anything like that. And I was told it was only bad luck. And I just wanted to bring to light, and I know this can be quite a complex conversation about the epigenetics, right?
Mhm.
I do believe that, in my personal case, and I think I believe that 95% of cancers are not genetic related, right? Like in the sense of like the tests that they can actually pinpoint that are genetic. They've tested my tumor and it wasn't genetic. So for me was the epigenetic shows that we're not, our future and our are not defined by our genes, but of course we have switches that go on and off depending on our
Mhm.
lifestyle choices, right? And
I
for
agree.
me, what you've just said, that I come from Brazil and we ate a lot of meat my whole life, the barbecue one, which is the charcoal, which is proven to be the charcoal, it is a problem, but also the processed meat, the nitrates that they add to preserve the salamis, the hams, and all of that. Eating a diet heavy on animal product, I ate a lot of dairy as well as a kid, and on top of that I ate a ton of sugar. So when I look at
That's a recipe.
I know, but the crazy thing is that when you look, if you ask anybody who grew up with me, they will say, no, but we ate a health diet. I still ate rice and beans every day. I still ate some veggies. But I believe that the issue as well is that the balance, there is an illusion in Western society these days, is that, oh no, but I do eat a bit of vegetables. I do eat fruit. I do eat legumes. I do eat nuts. But in actual fact, people are mostly eating animal products. and they just might eat a little, a little bit of broccoli, a little bit of, spinach, a little bit of salad, and they delude themselves to thinking, no, but I am eating healthily, like I did. And by the time you eat so much animal product, you don't have any more capacity to eat the amount of veggies that you need, the amount of plants, the amount of things that grow in nature that you need. And I think that's also a big issue, like if you had asked any of my friends, they'll be like, but how did you get cancer? You were the healthiest. I cooked from scratch every day at home. But, the reality is I still
I
didn't
completely
eat
agree.
healthily.
I completely agree. The problem is like, how do you define healthy? And what is healthy? It's crazy. Like if you look at the trend, the way health has been defined, it's mainly through media, and now it's through YouTube. In the 1950s, they told you to eat low-fat diet because, like fat, if you eat fat, and the idea was the fat goes to your cells and you accumulate fat. So if you don't eat fat, you're not going to become fat. And then, if you look at the studies, the obesity started raising in the US, and when this like was implemented. And then in 1980s, 1990s, Dr. Atkins, and Dr. Atkins introduced, okay, so if you don't eat sugar, you eat only protein, you're not going to become fat, you're going to lose weight. This is a recipe of losing weight. If you eat tons of protein, you don't eat sugar because you don't trigger insulin. Insulin is what takes the extra glucose, which is the sugar, and turns it to fat. And then after 10 to 20 years, the keto diet comes. And the keto diet tells you that, okay, so if you eat fat, and if you don't eat protein, if you don't eat sugar, you're going to be healthy. And then the paleo. So the problem is, how do you
Yeah,
define healthy? It's very
yeah,
hard. Like we can't define healthy. Of course, there are like some population-based studies where people were studied like in Japan or like other
yeah.
islands where people live to 100, and they noticed that those people mostly eat a plant-based
Plants,
diet,
the blue
and they
zones,
were not
right?
under
Yeah.
the influence of the media. Like it, the word healthy is being defined by the media, and whoever controls the media tells you what is healthy. Whoever
Mhm.
buys the media, the one who owns most money and puts money into marketing. And this again comes back to the food companies.
Yeah, for
We don't know
sure.
what's healthy.
I totally agree. Like, in Brazil and here I live in Australia now, the meat industry is a big part of
Yeah,
the government income. The export of the meat. I mean, a lot of Australians, the cancer, the bowel cancer, I believe is either the first or the second biggest killer in Australia. And in
mhm.
countries like New Zealand, I used to live in New Zealand and in Brazil, because people are constantly eating red meat. It's part of their culture. And yes, the government is not going to make a statement that the consumption of too much meat can cause cancer, because that is destroying a whole different industry that generates them a lot of income. I totally agree with that. But when it comes to, I really like that you touched on the blue zones studies, because for me, I spent 7.5 months reading about nutrition during my chemo treatment, and there is so much conflict information out there. Like you said, all this trends and this fair diets and things. And for me, what made the most sense was the blue zones, because these people are actually living, and they are not like in a lab. They are people that are living, and they're over 100 years old, and they are independent. They're sitting on the floor, they're standing up, they're talking to their friends, they are active, they are independent. Now, for me, I just looked at that and I thought, I don't care what everybody else says. I want to be that person, because I have sat at the chemo chair and I don't want to do that anymore. And I will do everything that it will take me to become that person. So, like logically for me, like this is what made the most sense. It's the most simple, formula, because these people are actually, they are the living proof. I don't know that, there isn't any studies that show that people that have eaten meat all their life, they're living until they're 100. Just meat, like the keto diet and all of that. So I think that's, for me, that's what made the most sense. And this is why today I eat a plant-based diet.
I completely agree. I think also like the problem is like study about food.
Mm,
It's a very big issue. So let me tell you how we
yeah.
do studies in medicine. And that's like that's what really annoys me the most. When you go to YouTube, everyone talks about the study. I've been 13 years in education, and I started my medical education to 2018, and now, 2009, and now we're in 2023, so it's almost 14 years now. And after 14 years of like 6 years medical school, 4 years of internal medicine training, 3 years of, I'm in my almost second year of, first year of medical oncology, and then like 3 years of preparing exams for Canada and the US, I'm certified in both countries, I can say I can interpret and understand research.
Yeah.
I can't claim that I can. It takes a lot to understand research. And now everyone comes and talks about research. So let me tell you how we do study medicines. For example, I'm a drug company. Let's talk about drugs now. Don't talk about food. Let's say I'm a drug company. I want to introduce drug A. So I bring a group of people. I randomize them to two populations. So I give them drug A. So group A, I give them my drug, and the group B, I give them placebo. And then I put millions of dollars. I put doctors to work for me. I'm a drug company. I put nurse practitioners, nurses, physician assistants to see this patient every month, every 2 weeks, depending on the protocol. Take vital signs, take a blood work, and write that down. At the end of the day, after like 6 months or 1 year, I will bring my results. I will go to the FDA. I will tell them the group of people who took my drug, they lived longer, or they had less recurrence of X condition. The FDA will tell me, congrats, this is good. Of course, like after like many ins and outs, and they will say, okay, now you can release your drug to the market. And me as a pharma company, I have tons of investors behind me and billions of dollars. So I will throw my drug to the market. Whatever money I put into this study, I will generate it back from selling my drug. But I was able to control group A and group B very well. I gave them my drug, and group B, I didn't give them my drug. Let's compare this, how nutrition study happens. If I'm going to study nutrition, okay, I bring a group of people. I ask them, what did you eat yesterday? What did you eat a month ago? I can't really remember what did I eat yesterday. And I follow them up. I call them after a year or maybe 6 months or after a month. How are you feeling? Let's do some blood work. And then after like a couple of years, 5-6 years, I bring my results. Usually, I don't have anything to sell. I don't have enough money to monitor these people very well. Those people who tell me what they are eating, they are under the recall bias because like they can't remember what they are eating, and they do some mistakes here and there. Like none of it's perfect. None of it's perfect. And then I publish my results. So as you see, the data garbage in, data garbage out, because there is no incentive to make money. So that's how nutritional studies are mostly conducted. I don't have a randomized study where I bring group A, I bring group B. Group A, I feed them plant. Group B, I feed them meat. I follow them for 10 years. I make sure group A only eat plant, group B only eat meat. And then I measure their blood work every 6 months or every month. And like there is no incentive. No one is incentivized. There is no financial incentive coming from that. That's the research when it comes to nutrition. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that also, through working with clients and people who have gone through cancer treatment, especially in America, and having to make decisions, around breast cancer, which is quite a different than the cancer I went through, because it can be, you can do the treatment first and the surgery after. Looking at some research around, for example, you've got, 237 people that had a mastectomy done and 137 that had a lumpectomy done, and there was a 0.1%,
difference.
Okay, so there is a lot of research out there that, when you actually look at their numbers as well, you've got to start thinking to yourself, will I make my decision about my own life based on this, on 237 people and 137, it's very, very, there is some sort of, manipulation as well of the data, that it's very difficult to know what a good research is and what a bad research is, right? Because at some point the research needs to finish, right? And for example, this drug is great, but if you die on 5 years and 1 day, if you die on this day here, after the 5 years, you're not considered, as somebody who died in the research. It's very difficult,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So I think that people have to. A lot of people are very focused on the science and being backed up by science, but research is not perfect either.
Oh yeah.
And I think, like I said, when it comes to something that it's nutrition and it's something that it will be very difficult to understand for people to even follow it through. And on top of that, if there is no money to be made, who's going to invest money on that? Let's face it, people won't. No
Yeah.
companies will do that.
So that's why I say, like, common sense and
Yeah.
examine your body.
Yeah. And also, I want to touch a little bit on the, when it comes to lifestyle changes, I did my own reading, my own research. I implemented all the changes myself during chemo and after chemo and everything. I also think that there is a piece of responsibility of each patient that it can be quite challenging for each person to take ownership of. It's not all about the doctors not telling patients what to do or the lifestyle changes that they need to be doing or anything like that. But I think that, when you're diagnosed with something like cancer, you've got to come to a conclusion that that you've got to change some. It's a pretty serious diagnosis, but a lot of people find lifestyle changes really challenging. I have spoken to many people that said to me, like, I can't believe you stopped eating meat. This is too hard. And after a cancer diagnosis, I mean, how do you see that improving in the future, in the sense of how can you guide patients to really take responsibility of those changes themselves in the after a cancer diagnosis?
I think that's a very good question. And I think it boils down to a simple concept. It's building habits. It's really what you feed your brain first before feeding your mouth. And it's really what you put around you. For example, I can tell you about my personal experience and my personal story. Um, Building a habit, it's hard when you do it without backed up science. So here, the science is important, and there are many books about building habits. But I think first is what you feed your brain. Everyone around you tells you that, oh, you can't live without meat, you can't survive without meat, we can't. Okay, this is completely wrong, and there are tons of people. You can find them on YouTube, you can find them on any podcast that they tell you about the benefits of plant-based diet. And I experienced it myself. I experienced every diet out there. I tried keto, I tried paleo, and I didn't feel well. I tried low carb, I tried hard carb, I tried everything until one day I stumbled into a book called Finding Ultra by Rich Roll. It's one of the greatest books. He was like someone who had problems with alcohol and then stopped drinking alcohol, switched to plant-based diet, and became an ultra runner and marathoner and like an Ironman. One of my goals was always to challenge myself, and I wanted to challenge myself on the physical level. I was very inspired by the book. I switched my entire diet to plant-based diet, and I ran my first marathon, my second marathon, my third marathon. My second and third marathon were 1 week apart, and this is all on
Wow.
plant-based diet. And the best way I know that the diet is right for me, I put my body under the stress test. I exercise and I see how I feel the next day. If I eat meat, the next day I exercise, I don't feel well. I eat a plant, the next day I exercise, I do feel well. Coming back to your answer, so how would you implement changes? So first, I fed my brain the right thoughts. I read the book that opened my mind. And for me, it was Ritual, Finding Ultra. So you're going to hear lots of people about you talking about around you talking about plant-based diet. There are tons of podcasts, tons of content.
Yeah.
For example, there is a great book, How Not to Diet. So it's also an eye opener. So that was another book. But for me, what helped me the most is that book changed my perspective to food. The second thing is your environment. If I go to the market and I buy chocolate and I buy s'mores and I buy chicken and I stuff my fridge with that, what am I going to eat? I'm going to eat
Yeah.
those things. Don't tell me like I'm just going to buy them
Yeah.
and like in moderation. Like that doesn't work. Like if it's there, you're going to eat it. Your brain
Yeah.
is going to trick you. If it's not there, you're not going to eat it. It's the same when you, for example, if I'm home working from home, I'm more likely to snack. If I go to the office or the clinic, I work from there, I'm much less likely to snack. If I'm in the coffee shop working, I can focus more. If I'm
Mm.
home and my girlfriend is around, I'm more likely to be um, distracted. So it
Distracted.
all boils down to feed your brain first the right
Hmm.
thought,
Yeah.
give it a shot. There is nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Treat your environment well.
Yeah. I agree
Those,
with that, and I think when what you said around when you make that change, I had all our family around us going like, you can't stop eating meat.
yeah,
This is like during cancer treatment, you really need meat. I was iron deficient
you
before
need
my
your
cancer
protein.
diagnosis.
Protein.
Yeah,
Lentils have tons
I
of
know,
protein.
I know,
Fruits have
yes,
tons of protein.
and that pressure, it was was quite intense. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm stubborn as hell, and I can just go. Now that's what I'm doing. But even I used to go to the oncologist and to the gastroenterologist, often, and I used to say to them, "Oh, but I'm changing my diet." They'll be like, "Angelica, the cancer has nothing to do with your diet. No, it was just bad luck." And I would leave their offices at the beginning crushed, thinking, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? I'm going out of all this effort. I'm changing my kids' diet at the same time, my husband. Should I really be doing this? Until one day I realized, this is what I'm doing. And this is it, and I know what I need to do. When people tell me, I just need to not let that get into me, which I think it's really important, especially if everybody around you is doing, the things that you are not doing anymore. There will be some peer pressure for you to keep doing that. And I think it's important for you to build the confidence within yourself that whatever you decide to do is the right thing for you. And like I said, if you experiment and if you feel good, then why, that's the enough proof, right? And I think when you at the beginning, when you said like, what are these health, for me, and I made a post yesterday about this. I had forgotten what being healthy was before cancer, because I was constantly sick, constantly exhausted, getting every cough and cold like before the cancer diagnosis. But I was healthy on the Thursday. I went to hospital on the Saturday, and on Monday I was having my emergency surgery for the stage 3 bowel cancer. Then I was no longer healthy. The idea, most people think being healthy is when you're just not on your deathbed, when you don't have a diagnosis. But I wasn't healthy. I was living in an enormous amount of suffering because I was just dragging myself through life every single day because I was exhausted.
The problem is also, actually, it's not a problem, it's a blessing and a problem at the same time. Our body has huge reserve.
Resilient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you can live with third or like half of what you have from kidney tissues right now. You can live with what lung? You can
Yeah.
live with your half of your liver. You can live with half of your. You can live. You can survive. I'm not saying it's going to be the
Yeah.
best. So you will not feel sick until you lose all the reserve you have. Your body
Yeah.
don't, and that's the tricky part. Like the problem also in our life is we don't put our bodies under stress test enough. We tell ourselves that we are healthy, but you don't know what you don't know until you test yourself. For example, if you go to a cardiologist and your cardiologist is going to check on your heart health, they put you on a treadmill and they make you run and they check your heart. They do an ECG, they do some blood work, and then they figure out literally they made you run. So
Yeah.
why don't test yourself on daily basis? For me, I'm healthy if I can wake up at 5 in the morning, hit the gym, work out for an hour. For me, I'm healthy if at my age I can run my 10K at 5 kilometers per hour. Sorry, 5 kilometers, like, yeah, I think that's my pace, 5:30. Anyways, for me, I'm healthy if I can stress my body enough. I can put my body under that healthy stress and see my body thriving and growing.
Mm.
It's being healthy. It's although like the definition is not having a
The
disease,
abscess, yeah,
but I think we need to change the definition. Being healthy is having a body that can overcome its limits.
yeah, I agree. And I think that exercise is something that I used to come in, I started exercising consistently and quite vigorously during cancer treatment. And I would come home with my little pump that was still pumping chemo until, on a Friday, I would go to the hospital, get one drug, and then I'll come home with this chemo pump until Sunday. That would, and this pump would be releasing a different drug into my system for 48 hours. And I would jump on my bike and I would just like go as hard as I could for half an hour, 45 minutes on the Saturday, and I would do that on the Sunday. And I must admit, when the nurse would come to disconnect me, I would crash for a few days. But even when I crashed, I would still go for a walk around the block. I made sure that I was still pushing my body and as well as respecting my body at the same time. But pushing my body during that time, it allowed me to finish the 12 sessions feeling stronger than I started. It allowed me to bounce back like that from cancer treatment, to never have like the cancer fatigue, I don't take any medication, all of that, because I did that work during chemo. A lot of people, and I have been asked so many times, but shouldn't I be resting? Yes, you should be resting, but you also should be pushing your body. It's not the time just to let your body just to go downhill. If I had let my body for 7.5 months and done nothing, all my muscle mass, everything would have gone downhill so much that it would have been very hard for me to climb back up again. And I think we can touch on the exercise and cancer. The evidence that it is there. I mean, when I did it, the oncologists were not talking too much about it, but I believe now they are. That was like 5 years ago. I really believe now they are. What is the evidence around exercise and cancer?
Yeah, I think you bring up several important points. Also, like it's a misconception. People around you telling you that you have to rest. Well, you have to rest. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you if you are
Yeah.
on chemo and you are vomiting, go and jump on the treadmill. I'm not telling you that. But that being said, also like our bodies are made to work. Our bodies are not made to sit in the office, although I do sit in the office 8-9 hours, but I make sure before that I at least exercise and I do my walk, or I have like an office treadmill. So our bodies are made for work. Remember, that's what we are made for. And when you exercise, you help to reduce the inflammation in your body. Like physical activity is very important. And there is a strong, I wouldn't say strong evidence, I would use this word more cautiously. There are observational studies. So, what does that mean? So, when it comes to the levels of evidence we have in medicine, the strongest evidence we have is when we give people intervention and we give people no intervention, we follow them, we compare them. So, this is called randomized clinical trials. And we combine randomized clinical trials, the results from a trial here, trial in the US, trial in Canada, trial in Australia, trial in the UK. We combine all the results together. So this is called meta-analysis. So this is the strongest evidence we have in medicine. That being said, we do have evidence from observational studies. Observational studies means that scientists did not intervene. They had a group of people doing something and a group of people not doing something by their choice. And we sat there and we just observed them. And like literally, we had a pen and paper. We started collecting data and see what happens. And we tell the story. So we do have evidence from observational studies, and then we combine this to make stronger studies. So when it comes to exercise is shown that it helped to reduce the recurrence, and also it lowers the risk of several cancers. So in bladder cancer, there is a meta-analysis in 2014 that looked into the bladder cancer, and the risk was 15% lower for people who did recreational or occupational physical activity, that when compared to the people who did not do an activity. So if I have two group of people, okay, and they are both having some risk factors for bladder cancer, let's say, and group A exercise, group B did not exercise. So people who exercise were 15%, or so the amount of bladder cancer developed was 15% lower than people who did not exercise. Not only bladder cancer, breast cancer. There is a strong evidence from, again, it's observational and cohort studies. We sit down, we observe people. Physical activity reduces the risk of breast cancer by 12 to 21%.
Wow.
Not only that, and there is also like some explanation. Colon cancer, physical activity helped to reduce the risk of colon cancer, endometrial cancer, esophageal cancer. There is evidence for kidney cancer. There is evidence for stomach cancer. And when it comes to the explanation, I would say like there are several hypotheses. First, when you exercise, you help to reduce the level of hormone called insulin. All of us, we are aware from insulin. Insulin, it's the hormone that helps to regulate the sugar in the body. But it's not only a hormone that regulates sugar, it also a hormone that promotes cell growth. And that's why we eat lots of carbohydrate, and this will raise the insulin. The insulin will take this carbohydrate and to turn them to a fat, and it helps to increase the growth of fat cells. When you reduce the amount of insulin through exercise, so this will reduce the cancer cell development. And remember, what is cancer cell? It's a cell from our body, for some reason or another, went crazy. So when you give insulin to a cancer cell, it's just like pouring gas on fire. Remove the gas, the fire might not turn off completely, but at least it's not going to become worse. The other thing is exercise help to boost the immune system. Exercise help to reduce inflammation. Exercise help you to reduce the fat tissue. We do have normal organs, and having extra fat, 40%, 50%, this is not considered a normal organ in our body. And that organ, the fat tissue, release lots of inflammatory hormones and cytokines or leukotrienes, and this can trigger cancer cells, and this can promote cancer cell proliferation and inhibit the immune system. So just to summarize, to answer your question, you asked me if exercise helps. Yes. Is there an evidence? For sure. There are multiple hypotheses that explain it. So it reduces the risk of cancer, and it reduces the risk of cancer recurrence if cancer happens.
Yeah, that's very, and you touch on something that I think a lot of people are suffering with, like on top of like a cancer diagnosis, which is the obesity. They're being, already arriving at the cancer treatment, or that cancer diagnosis with that extra weight. When I was diagnosed, I was through Bowel Cancer Australia, which is a non-profit charity here in Australia, which they're doing a great job in so many different levels. And they connected me with somebody who had just gone through the treatment, which was a lady, and she helped me through with the text, just so I could ask her questions. What about this? What about that? And I remember that I was changing my diet. I was starting to exercise. She told me that, Angelica, I've done this treatment with about 8 other girls last year, and all of us put on between 12 to 25 kgs during treatment. And I just looked at that message and I thought, oh my God, I cannot be that person, because I don't want to end up at the end of this treatment with 12 to 25 kgs to lose, because I know that, being overweight is not good for anybody else's health, let alone somebody who had cancer. So I started becoming, I remember that I was very nauseous all the time, 24/7, and even with the medication. And eating was the only kind of 5 seconds relief that I had. And I had my dinner really early, and I would have like a snack after my dinner, which was a healthy snack. And I just thought, you know what, I actually don't need that snack. And I started making some more conscious choices about, what I was eating during the day, even though it was a plant-based diet, just what I was eating in general. I didn't gain any weight. And I think that, again, There is a misconception, I believe, that during cancer treatment, you're most likely going to lose weight. Although I was nauseous, the medication that I was taking, the anti-nausea one, was really helping, to stop me from vomiting and from, really kind of losing weight like that. So I never really lost weight. And I think it's really interesting that a lot of people gain weight during cancer treatment, for the drugs or, whatever it is that is happening in their bodies. And of course, it could be also because, they're eating the wrong foods or whatever. But what are the risks again, finishing cancer treatment or being during cancer treatment with that extra weight that, the person is carrying?
It's very important question, and I think like the risk is enormous. The risk is
Yeah.
great. Like the question is, why are you being treated for cancer? To help you live longer and help you live better quality of life.
Mm.
So when you gain weight, what are you doing? You're increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease,
Cardiovascular disease,
peripheral arterial disease, diabetes,
diabetes.
dyslipidemia, hypertension, stroke, and we call all this metabolic syndrome.
Yeah,
So you're treating one condition, and at the same time, you are treating another condition for your body to deal with.
yeah,
Good luck.
yeah,
That's, I would say, the simple answer. Like it's not good to lose weight a lot during cancer treatment because like it's we don't want, like, during treatment it's not a good time to
no,
lose weight. I'm not saying go and exercise and stop eating.
no,
You need nutrition. Don't go and eat potato chips for nutrition. Go and eat
no,
broccoli. Go and eat your cabbage. Go and
yeah,
eat your like it's a crazy that people think about like broccoli and cabbage not tasty food. If you try
yeah,
vegetarian vegan cuisine, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. There is a magazine that I subscribe to. It's called Forks and Knives. You will be surprised by the amount
yes,
of
I love
taste.
that.
All the taste meat. If you try meat without the flavors that we add, and the meat is only a texture. Meat is not a flavor. All the flavor come from the plants, from the spices.
Yeah,
So, anyways, going back and answering your question is like, I'm not telling people go and lose weight during cancer treatment, but also don't gain weight by sitting home and doing cancer treatment is hard.
yeah,
I see
mm-hmm,
patients, but what I'm getting is people have this idea
yeah,
that if they gain weight, this will help their survival or they make their body stronger. So again, it's very tricky. So let's say I was normal weight and I gained weight
mm,
during my cancer treatment and I became overweight.
yeah,
I'm stressing my body.
mm-hmm,
On the other hand, let's say I was normal weight, and because of my cancer diagnosis and surgery, I lost lots of weight and muscle mass. And when I was getting treatment, I started gaining weight and coming back to my normal weight. That's a good thing. So it's a
mm,
relative thing. And also depends on what type of weight you are. Are you gaining your own normal weight? You are building your
yeah,
tissue, or are you putting fat? Again, so weight. Also,
yeah,
we think a lot about weight. We don't think about the quality of the weight.
yes,
Are we putting muscle tissue or are we putting
mm,
fat tissue? And they are both different.
yeah. Yeah, it can be quite a complex conversation, and in this particular case, basically what this lady told me is that they had all started at a normal weight and they had become overweight, and I did not
Yeah,
want to be that person. I
don't be
thought
that person.
exactly, I can't be that person. And I just want to finalize just to touch on alcohol. I was a heavy binge drinker for 16 years before my cancer treatment. I drank what the Western world would call normal. Um, 2 units every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And if you have a party, you just drink a little bit more. Until after my emergency surgery, I had a nurse looking after me, and he was a young guy. And I kind of said to him, hey, I bet you we would much rather be out with your friends, drinking. Tonight is a Friday and you're here looking after me. And he said, no, I don't drink. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, no, I don't drink. Did you know that it takes 3 hours for your liver to process 1 unit of alcohol? And it just hit me like a wave. I was like, oh my God, all of those years of binging drinking that I've went through. And there was a pivot moment for me to making a decision that I wasn't going to drink again. I mean, I felt like I had a hangover during the whole cancer treatment, like the nauseous feeling and all of that. But at the end, a lot of my friends, asked me, Angelica, you're going to have a drink to celebrate. And I kind of was like, I don't know. I don't think I will. And I haven't drank for 5 years now. And again, I think that there is, I don't know if there is a strong evidence or if there are any research around that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's a misconception. It's a myth that people have. Like, if you're going to celebrate, you're going to feel happy, you have to drink. So what is the effect of alcohol on us? Okay, so it is biphasic, I would say. So initially, when you drink alcohol, that's what we are taught in medical school, and that's what I experienced when I drink alcohol. So first, you're going to feel happy, you're going to become talkative, and then you're going to feel that more happiness in your brain, and you'll become more relaxed because alcohol helps to suppress the anxiety hormones in your brain. And then once that suppression becomes too much, you'll become drunk, and then the next day you'll become hangover. So those are the phases of alcohol drinking. Does it have any nutritional benefit? Zero. Does it? Where is the happiness? I don't know. Like, I do sometimes when I go out, I do occasionally have a beer here and there, but like I do that maybe once every 4 or 5 months. I would never buy alcohol by myself. Like, I would go out and if people are doing it, like, I have a drink. Okay, so everyone's doing it, I'm joining, but like, I would never do it myself and would not advise for it. Why? One, alcohol is considered irritant. When you go and you sanitize your hand, you're using alcohol to kill the bacteria in your hand.
Yeah.
So it's irritant. So what are the first tissue that is exposed to alcohol when you drink alcohol? Your mouth and your lips and your throat. There is a strong, it is proven, alcohol increases the risk of mouth cancer.
Wow.
Alcohol increases the risk of esophageal cancer. Alcohol increases the risk of throat cancer. So those are 3. Then it goes your stomach, gets absorbed directly from the stomach to your liver because it can pass. So those are the properties of alcohol. Alcohol can pass through, it dissolves in fat, and most of our tissues are made from fat. So it can dissolve through the fat, through the cell layers, and go diffuse to the liver. Who gets hit? Your liver. Yeah. So alcohol increases the risk of liver cancer. And alcohol then increases the risk of breast cancer. It's a proven. You can go to my YouTube channel. I created a video about breast cancer risk factors, and I do talk about how alcohol increases the risk of breast cancer.
Yeah.
Where is the celebration and the happiness of that?
Yeah. And I think for me, it was a realization of, the liver is the organ that is detoxifying everything to our bodies. And I felt that my body, and my body was working, my liver was working extremely hard during chemo to detox from the medication that I was taking. And if on top of that, I add more stress to my liver, it's logical that, it would be illogical to drink alcohol. Okay. And I know that also as soon as the chemo would finish, my liver wouldn't go back to it like that. We're still trying to detox from it.
Yeah. Not only that, like lots of chemo drugs, they have to be metabolized in the liver to be active. So when you're drinking alcohol, this can compete with the drugs that are being metabolized in the liver. So your liver will metabolize alcohol versus metabolize those drugs. So those drugs will not work. So good luck.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Roupen.
My
There's
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
so many good, so much good information here. I will add your YouTube channel below, your LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with Roupen, please, go ahead and to subscribe to his channel as well. I think it's very important that we have those conversations. That I believe also, it's quite hard from a physician, coming from a physician, because it's, when we talk about lifestyle changes, a lot of people can be quite hesitant about, because it is challenging. It is on them to take the responsibilities, and it's not on anybody else. And I think it's really important coming from, somebody who is representing, the medical community. So I really, really appreciate your knowledge and your experience here. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Wow.